My father handed the $1,800,000,000 empire I built to my useless brother because he had kids, so I delivered an ending that haunted them forever.
I, a 33-year-old male, paint you the picture.
My dad, Antonio, is 65, an old-school Italian guy who has been breaking his back doing landscape work since before I was born. Picture the most stereotypical blue-collar dude, permanent dirt under his fingernails, always smells like grass clippings, and can operate an excavator like it is an extension of his body. Ever since I could walk, I was obsessed with being out there with him. While other kids were playing Xbox, I was learning about soil pH and irrigation systems like some kind of tiny landscaping prodigy. My older brother, Vincent, though, was the complete opposite. He is 39 and spent our entire childhood acting like yard work was beneath him. This dude literally would not help with basic chores around our own house because he did not want to ruin his image with the prep school crowd. He would tell his friends our dad was a landscape architect because God forbid anyone found out dad actually got his hands dirty for a living. But here is where it gets interesting. When Vincent was 15, he got into a nasty car accident. Some drunk driver T-boned him coming home from a party. The kid was in the hospital for 3 months with a shattered leg and internal injuries. Doctors were not sure he would walk normally again, and our whole family was scared shitless. During those weeks when he was laid up, guess who became his personal cheerleader? Yes. Dad spent every free minute at that hospital, bringing Vincent's favorite food, helping with physical therapy, basically being super dad. What really sealed the deal was this one night when Vincent was having a panic attack about whether he would ever walk normally again. Dad stayed with him until 4 in the morning, holding his hand and promising him that everything would be okay. I was only 9, but I remember Mom crying in the kitchen the next morning, telling me how Dad had never been that gentle with anyone before. That vulnerability from Vincent broke something open in Dad that never really closed back up. From that moment on, Vincent could literally do no wrong in his eyes. They bonded during that nightmare. And apparently that bond was permanent. Even after Vincent recovered and went back to treating Dad's profession like it was community service, Dad still treated him like he walked on water. I learned early that I was playing for second place in this family Olympics. There was this one time in high school when I made varsity wrestling as a sophomore, which was huge because our school had a legendary program. When I told my parents, Mom was pumped, but Dad just gave me one of those, "That is great, son," responses while scrolling through his phone. My first big match was on Saturday night, and I was hyped to have my family there watching me kick ass. Mom was working a double at the nursing home, so I was counting on Dad to be in the stands. But when I asked him, he got all shifty and said he had already promised to help Vincent move into his college dorm. Mom was not having it. She flat out told him Vincent could wait until Sunday. This was important. Dad reluctantly agreed, but the night before the match, Vincent pulled his classic manipulation tactics. He started going on about how this was his Independence Day, and how he needed Dad's truck to move his furniture, and had been counting on their father-son bonding time. Dad folded like a lawn chair in a hurricane. So, there I was getting my ass handed to me by this beast from the rival school, scanning the stands for his face. He never showed. The worst part was not even losing the match. It was that split second between rounds when I looked up, expecting to see him cheering, only to find empty bleachers where my family should have been. My coach noticed me looking and patted my shoulder saying, "Sometimes you have to fight alone, kid." That comment hit harder than any takedown that night. I texted Mom afterward, and she called immediately thinking something had happened. No. Dad was at State University playing furniture mover for his precious Vincent. I walked into the house to find my parents in a screaming match that could have woken the dead. Mom was furious, asking where the hell he had been. That is when Vincent walked in with pizza boxes and drinks, looking completely unbothered by the chaos he had caused. When Mom called him out, this entitled prick just shrugged and said, his wrestling thing was not that big a deal anyway. The audacity of this guy still gets me heated. Here I was, 16 years old, just got my ass kicked in front of half the school, and my own brother was dismissing it like I had lost a video game tournament. I remember thinking, this is my family. And Dad, instead of apologizing, defended him, saying it was just a high school match, and there would be other competitions. But Vincent needed help with this major life transition. I felt like I had been gut punched. My own father was dismissing something I had worked my ass off for like it was nothing. I smiled and said it was cool, that I understood. Then I went to my room and punched a hole in the drywall. Mom found me icing my knuckles later that night and just hugged me without saying anything. Sometimes that is all you need. Someone who gets how screwed up your situation is without having to explain it. This pattern continued for years. Dad would make half-hearted attempts to treat us equally after Mom ripped him a new one. But he always slid back into Team Vincent mode. After high school, I went to community college for landscape design and horticulture while Vincent went off to his fancy 4-year university. When I graduated, I came home and started working with Dad in the business. I was 23, full of energy and big ideas, ready to help him turn his little operation into something that actually mattered. When I started, Dad had 3 guys with beat-up trucks doing basic lawn maintenance for maybe 40 customers. But I had vision. I got us certified for commercial irrigation, started bidding on municipal contracts, and reached out to property management companies and high-end residential developers. Here is where I need to introduce you to 2 guys who became crucial to this whole story. First is Big Mike Torino. This 6'4" beast of a foreman who had been working for Dad since I was in middle school. Mike was the kind of guy who could install a complex irrigation system with his eyes closed and was not afraid to tell clients exactly what they needed to hear, even if it hurt their feelings. He became like a second father to me, teaching me everything about heavy equipment operation and how to manage crews. He had this way of cutting through the shit that I have never seen before or since. When clients tried to change scope mid-project or contractors tried to lowball us, Mike would look them dead in the eye and say, "That is not how this works, Chief." Second is Danny Castellano, this crazy smart engineer who left his corporate job to start doing landscape design. We met when he contracted us for a job, but ended up becoming business partners when I convinced Dad to bring him on full time. Danny could design outdoor spaces that looked like they belonged in magazines. Within 2 years of me joining, we had quintupled our client base and started landing contracts that Dad never would have dreamed of bidding on. I will never forget our first major commercial win, a $180,000 complete landscape renovation for the Meridian Business Park. Dad thought I was insane for bidding that high, but I knew our work was worth it. When we finished that project 2 weeks early and $15,000 under budget, the property manager called it the most professional operation he had ever worked with. That contract led to 5 more properties in their portfolio. Over the next decade, I poured my heart and soul into transforming Dad's little lawn service into a legitimate landscape empire. We went from $120,000 in annual revenue to just shy of $1.8 million last year. We employ 35 people now, run a fleet of 18 trucks, and have contracts with half the office parks in the county. Our residential division does complete outdoor renovations that cost more than most people's cars. While Dad still loved getting his hands dirty on the smaller residential jobs, I handled literally everything else. Bidding commercial contracts, managing crews, handling permits and inspections, marketing, finances, equipment maintenance. I was pulling 70-hour weeks split between job sites and our office. This business became my life's work, my entire future. The crazy part was watching how other contractors started treating us differently. At industry meetups, guys who used to ignore Dad would come up wanting to know our secret. Our equipment stayed running longer, our crews showed up consistently, and our client retention rate was over 90%. I implemented systems for everything: maintenance schedules, quality control checklists, customer follow-up protocols, stuff that seemed obvious to me, but apparently was not standard practice in our industry. But here is what I did not know at the time. Vincent was playing a whole different game. Every few months, he would swing by the office during his visits home, always making a big show of being impressed with what I had accomplished. "Enzo, this is incredible," he would tell me in front of Dad. "You have really grown this business into something special. Dad is lucky to have someone so dedicated." But what I found out later was that he pulled Dad aside afterward for these private conversations. Mom eventually told me about overhearing one of them during a family barbecue. "Enzo is doing great work," Vincent had said. "But honestly, Dad, I am worried about his leadership potential. He is a fantastic worker, but running a business requires strategic thinking, not just technical skills. When you are ready to step back, you need someone with real management experience." The guy was playing both sides, stroking my ego to my face while systematically undermining my credibility behind closed doors. What made it even more infuriating was how he would throw around corporate buzzwords like synergy and optimization without understanding what the heck they meant in a landscaping context. This dude thought managing spreadsheets was the same as managing crews of guys working in 95-degree heat with heavy machinery. He had no idea that half our success came from relationships built over years of showing up when we said we would and fixing problems before they became disasters. Big Mike always had my back and would constantly tell people that I was the brains behind the operation. "Antonio built a lawn service," he would say, "but Enzo built a freaking empire." Danny would design these incredible landscapes, but he always made sure clients knew I was the guy who made it all happen. But here is the thing about building something beautiful: there is always someone waiting in the wings to take it away from you. Last year, everything started going to hell when Dad filed for divorce from Mom. They have been arguing more lately, mostly about money and Dad's increasing obsession with living while he is young, and their marriage finally hit the breaking point. It sucked for the family, but honestly, I saw it coming from a mile away. What I did not see coming was how quickly Dad jumped into the dating scene like some kind of middle-aged predator. We are talking about a 65-year-old dude suddenly acting like he is some kind of landscaping mogul playboy, dating women young enough to be his daughters. Each new girlfriend was more interested in his newfound wealth than anything resembling a real relationship. The transformation was honestly embarrassing to watch. Dad started buying designer clothes, got his teeth whitened, even bought a freaking Corvette like he was having some kind of crisis. Big Mike started making jokes about it. "Your old man is having a midlife crisis at 65, he would say while we were loading equipment. That is not midlife, that is end-life crisis." Even Danny noticed the change, mentioning how Dad was showing up to job sites in brand new clothes and talking about upgrading his lifestyle. What really pissed me off was watching him throw away 35 years of marriage for this fantasy. Mom had worked her ass off supporting his dreams when he was just some guy with a pickup truck and a lawnmower. She had handled the books, answered phones at all hours, even helped with payroll during tight months. And now that the business was successful, he was tossing her aside like she had been holding him back the whole time. 5 months ago, Dad called both Vincent and me for what he said was an important family meeting. We met at his new condo, this pretentious glass and steel place that looked like it belonged in a magazine for douchebags with more money than sense. The atmosphere was tense from the moment we walked in. Dad cleared his throat and dropped the first bomb. "I have something important to tell you both. Stephanie and I got married last weekend." Vincent and I just stared at each other like we had been slapped. Stephanie was his latest conquest, a 29-year-old former fitness influencer who had been working her magic on Dad for the past 6 months. "With all this, you deserve to enjoy your success, and life is too short to settle," he said. "You got married without telling us?" I asked, trying to process this insanity. Dad got all defensive. "We wanted something intimate. You know how Stephanie feels about big crowds and drama." Yes, I knew exactly how Stephanie felt. She was calculating as hell. But Dad was too whipped to see past the fake tits and Instagram filters. The woman had never worked a real job in her life, spent most of her time posting workout videos and selling protein powder to desperate housewives. But she had figured out that lonely divorced guys with money were easy targets. I had met her exactly twice, and both times she had spent the entire conversation asking questions about the business finances while pretending to be so interested in landscaping. Red flags everywhere. But Dad was thinking with his dick instead of his brain. But that was not even the worst part of his announcement. "I have also been thinking about succession planning for the business," Dad continued, his tone getting all serious and businesslike. My heart started pounding. After 10 years of building this company together, this was the moment I had been waiting for. I expected him to discuss making me a full partner, maybe even transitioning ownership to me since I was obviously running the show anyway. Instead, he delivered the blow that changed everything. "Enzo, I have decided that since you are not married and do not have children, you will not be inheriting the business. I am giving it entirely to Vincent." I could not breathe. Big Mike always joked that I would have a heart attack from stress someday, but I never thought it would be from my own father destroying my life. "What the fuck?" I managed to whisper. "Vincent has a family," Dad continued. "His wife, Jennifer, and their 3 kids. They need the financial security. Plus, he can take the business to new heights with his corporate management background." I stared at him in complete disbelief. "Dad, I built this business with you. I have dedicated my entire adult life to it. How can you just..." "You can continue working in your current position under Vincent's management," he interrupted. "But the ownership goes to your brother. That is final. No discussion, no consideration for everything I had sacrificed. No acknowledgement that I had literally built the systems and relationships that made the business valuable. Just a dismissal that felt colder than anything he had ever said to me." I turned to Vincent, desperately hoping he would speak up for me, show some brotherly loyalty. Instead, this guy sat there with this smug little smile like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Hey, Enzo," he said with fake concern. "I know this is a lot to process, but I think we can make this work really well. Your technical expertise combined with my strategic vision, we could really take things to the next level." The condescending tone made my blood boil. Here was a guy who had spent 15 years avoiding the business like it was community service, suddenly acting like he was doing me a favor by letting me work for him. "This is complete bullshit," I said, my voice cracking. "I have given everything to this business. What about my future, my dreams?" Dad's response was cold as ice. "Life is not fair, Enzo. Family comes first, and Vincent has a family to provide for." Vincent leaned forward with this fake, sympathetic expression. "Look, brother. I know you are emotional right now, but you have to understand running a business is not just about being good at the work. It is about strategy, finance, and long-term planning. Dad needs someone with proven management experience. This, coming from a guy whose idea of long-term planning was deciding what to order for lunch. I wanted to ask him to name 3 pieces of equipment we owned or explain how irrigation zones worked, but I knew it would be pointless. Dad had already made up his mind, probably with plenty of input from his new wife, who saw dollar signs every time she looked at our financial statements. This was not just about the business. It was about a lifetime of being second choice, of having my work minimized, of never being the favorite son, no matter what I accomplished. Fine, I said quietly, standing up from the table. If that is how you want to play this. I walked out of that pretentious condo, knowing I would never be back. As I got to my truck, I could hear Vincent through the open window saying something about helping Enzo adjust to the new structure, like I was some kind of problem employee instead of the guy who had built everything he was about to inherit. The drive home was a blur of rage and betrayal. 10 years of my life wasted. 10 years of building something incredible only to have it handed to my lazy-ass brother because he managed to knock up his college girlfriend. That night, I called Mom and told her everything. She was as shocked as I was. I never thought he would do something this cruel, she said, her voice shaking with anger, to give the entire business to Vincent instead of splitting it fairly between you two. It is unconscionable. I would have been fine with a 60-40 split, I told her through gritted teeth, or even 70-30 in his favor, but to cut me out completely after everything I have done. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then her voice became stronger, more determined. You know what? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You have got 10 years of experience, incredible skills, and every contractor in the county respects you. Why do not you start your own business? Half those clients would probably follow you anyway. Her words lit a fire in me. If Dad thought he could just toss me aside like yesterday's grass clippings, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Over the past decade, I had been smart with my money. I had saved over $125,000, living in a modest apartment and driving a 10-year-old truck while reinvesting everything back into equipment and certifications. It was more than enough to start my own operation. The next morning, I started making calls. The first person I called was Big Mike. Mike, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me for coffee? When I told him what happened, this 6'4" beast of a man looked like he wanted to put his fist through the wall. Those bastards, he growled, after everything you have done for that business. You know what, Enzo? I am done with them. If you are starting your own company, I am coming with you. The next call was to Danny. His reaction was even stronger. Are you freaking kidding me? He exploded. Vincent could not design a flower bed if his life depended on it. That business is going to crash and burn without you running it. Danny, I am starting my own company. Are you in? Hell yes, I am in. When do we start? Then I started reaching out to our biggest clients, the property management companies, the municipal contracts, the high-end residential customers I had personally brought in over the years. I explained the situation honestly. Dad was passing the business to my brother and I was starting my own company. The response was overwhelming. Client after client expressed their loyalty to me personally. They had worked with me for years, trusted my crews, knew I delivered on time and under budget. Most of them had never even dealt with Vincent. We work with you, not your father, said Tom Richardson, the facilities manager for the biggest office complex in town. If you are starting your own business, we are following you. Vincent is a nice enough guy, but he does not know shit about landscape management. The most satisfying call was with Patricia Wells from Grandview Properties. She managed 8 commercial properties that generated about $340,000 in annual revenue for us. When I explained the situation, she was genuinely pissed off on my behalf. That is absolutely ridiculous, she said. You have been our primary contact for 4 years. You know every inch of our properties. You respond to emergencies at all hours, and your crews are the most professional we have ever worked with. Of course, we are coming with you. Within a week, I had commitments from 70% of our commercial client base. These were not just customers. They were relationships I had built through years of showing up early, staying late, and making sure their properties looked perfect. Word spread like wildfire through our industry. Several of our best crew leaders approached me privately, expressing interest in jumping ship. They had seen what was coming. With Vincent in charge and me gone, the business would struggle hard. 2 weeks later, I submitted my resignation letter to Dad. The conversation was nuclear. You cannot just abandon the business now, he screamed over the phone. We have contracts to fulfill, equipment, payments, payroll. I am giving you the standard 2 weeks notice, I said calmly. That is more than you gave me when you decided to hand over my life's work to someone who has never operated a piece of equipment or managed a crew. This is sabotage, Vincent chimed in from the background. Apparently, they were tag teaming this call. "This is capitalism," I replied. "Good luck figuring out how irrigation systems work." The desperation in their voices was almost satisfying. Part of me still felt bad for Dad, but he had made his choice. Now he would have to live with the consequences. Big Mike put in his notice the same day. So did Danny. So did 4 of our best crew leaders and 8 other employees. The exodus was swift and devastating. Starting Torino Landscape Solutions, I named it after Big Mike because the man deserved the recognition. It was simultaneously the scariest and most satisfying thing I had ever done. We found a perfect shop space in an industrial complex, bigger than Dad's place, better location, room for all the equipment we would need. Big Mike helped me negotiate deals on used equipment from guys we had worked with over the years. Danny designed our office space and created a portfolio that looked more professional than anything Dad's operation had ever produced. The clients who had committed to following us were true to their word. Within a month, we had enough contracts signed to keep us busy for 6 months straight. My phone was ringing constantly with new inquiries. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Dad's business was imploding. Vincent had moved back from his suburban paradise, expecting to walk into a smoothly running operation. But this dude knew nothing about equipment maintenance, nothing about managing crews, nothing about the relationships that kept commercial clients happy. I heard from Luis Mendoza, one of our suppliers, that Vincent had called him in a panic because 2 mowers had broken down in the same week. Apparently, Vincent did not know that equipment needed regular maintenance beyond just putting gas in it. He asked me if we could loan him a crew until he hired new guys, Luis told me while laughing. I told him that is not how equipment suppliers work. He seemed genuinely confused about the difference between buying equipment and renting crews. What I did not expect was how quickly Vincent would start trying to improve the business through some creative accounting practices. About 2 months after I left, Maria Gonzalez, our former office manager who had stayed with Dad out of loyalty, called me up one evening. She sounded stressed as hell. "Enzo, I need to talk to someone about what is going on at the shop. Can we meet for coffee? I do not feel comfortable talking about this on the phone." The next day, Maria looked exhausted when we met at a little diner downtown. She had been Dad's office manager for 6 years, handling invoices, payroll, and client communications. She knew the business inside and out. "Vincent is doing some things that do not seem right," she said quietly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "He has been marking up invoices way beyond our usual rates, telling clients it is for premium management services or strategic oversight fees." My stomach dropped. "How much are we talking about?" He added a 30% markup to the Patterson office complex job. That is an extra $15,000 on a $50,000 contract. When I asked him about it, he said it was standard practice for executive management oversight. "What else?" Maria pulled out a manila folder. "He has been creating invoices for consulting services from something called Strategic Landscape Solutions Limited Liability Company." I looked it up. It is registered to his home address. $2,500 a month for operational consulting. This guy was literally paying himself fake consulting fees out of the business account. "There is more," Maria continued. "He has been using the company credit card for personal stuff, expensive dinners, his kids' private school tuition, even a family vacation to Disney World. When I questioned it, he said it was client entertainment and strategic planning retreats. I was furious, but tried to stay calm. "Maria, why are you telling me this?" "Because I care about your dad, and this is going to destroy everything he built. Vincent does not know I kept copies of everything, but I did. I have got invoices, credit card statements, bank transfers, all of it." She slid the folder across the table. "I cannot stay there much longer. My conscience will not let me be part of this, but I thought you should know what is happening to the business you helped build." I drove home with Maria's folder, burning a hole in my passenger seat. Part of me wanted to march straight to Dad's office and shove the evidence in his face. But Big Mike had taught me something valuable over the years. When you are going to take someone down, you better make sure they cannot get back up. That night, I spread everything out on my kitchen table. The documentation was damning. Vincent had been systematically looting the business for months, inflated invoices totaling over $95,000 in fraudulent charges to clients, $42,500 in fake consulting fees paid to a shell company, $31,000 in personal expenses charged to the business credit card, and payroll irregularities where he had been paying himself overtime for management duties. I called my lawyer, Jim Rodriguez, first thing Monday morning. Jim had helped me set up my business and had been practicing commercial law for 20 years. "Enzo, this is serious fraud," he said after reviewing the documents. "Invoice inflation, self-dealing, misuse of corporate funds. Vincent could be looking at criminal charges and civil liability. What is the best way to handle this? Document everything. Do not confront them directly, and let me handle the legal strategy. I am going to recommend we file a complaint with the district attorney's office and notify the Internal Revenue Service about the unreported income from his shell company. Over the next few weeks, more evidence kept coming my way. Luis Mendoza, one of our longtime suppliers, reached out after hearing I had started my own business. "Enzo, I have been wanting to talk to someone about what is happening with your dad's company," he said when I met him at his equipment yard. "Vincent has been demanding cash kickbacks on our invoices. Says it is standard practice for preferred vendor status." "How much?" 10% of every invoice. Last month alone, that was $3,000. I have been paying it because I need the business, but it is killing my margins. And honestly, it feels dirty as hell." Luis had been supplying parts and equipment to Dad's business for 8 years. He was as honest as they come, the kind of guy who would drive 50 miles to deliver an emergency part on a weekend. "I have got receipts for all the cash payments," Luis continued. "And I recorded our last conversation where he threatened to cancel our contracts if I did not keep paying." More documentation for the growing file. The most damaging evidence came from Sarah Kim, an account manager at Westfield Properties, one of our biggest commercial clients that had stayed with Dad's company. "We need to discuss your father's billing practices," she said when she called my office. "We have been getting invoices that do not match the work being performed." I agreed to meet with her, knowing this could be the smoking gun. "We contracted for basic landscape maintenance on our office parks," Sarah explained, showing me recent invoices, "but we were being charged for executive site inspections, strategic vegetation analysis, and premium quality assurance services." Vincent told our facilities manager these were industry standard charges. The invoices were 40% higher than what Dad had historically charged for the same services. Vincent was essentially stealing from clients by making up shit charges and hoping they would not question it. "Sarah, were you satisfied with the quality of work under these new charges?" She laughed bitterly. "The work has been terrible. Half the crews do not show up on time. The equipment breaks down constantly, and nobody seems to know what they are doing. We are paying premium prices for amateur service. Would you be willing to file a formal complaint if needed?" "Absolutely. We are already considering canceling our contracts. The only reason we have not is out of respect for your father." Meanwhile, my business was absolutely crushing it. We had grown to 28 employees, had a 6-month backlog of work, and clients were referring new customers faster than we could handle them. Danny's designs were getting featured in industry publications, and we had won 3 major municipal contracts. The contrast with Dad's operation was stark. Word on the street was that they were hemorrhaging clients, crews were quitting regularly, and equipment was breaking down because Vincent had no idea how to maintain it properly. But what Vincent did not know was that his days were numbered. In November, Jim Rodriguez filed our formal complaint with the district attorney's office. The documentation was so extensive and well organized that they opened an investigation immediately. 2 weeks later, the Internal Revenue Service received an anonymous tip about unreported income and fraudulent business expenses. Funny how that works. The final nail in the coffin came when Maria called me in early December. "Enzo, I just gave my 2 weeks notice," she said. "But I wanted to let you know Vincent asked me to delete all the financial records from before July when he took over. He said they were cluttering up the system and not relevant to future operations." "Did you do it?" "Hell no. I told him I would need written authorization from your father and he got really nervous. Vincent was trying to destroy evidence. The desperation was showing." "Maria, one more favor. Can you make copies of any recent records before you leave?" "Already done. I have got everything through last week backed up on a flash drive. This is the last thing I can do for your dad. Maybe when this all comes out, he will realize what Vincent really is." Christmas came and went. I spent it with my girlfriend, Sarah, and her family, finally feeling like I had a real future to look forward to. My business was thriving. I was planning to propose in the spring. And for the first time in years, I was not thinking about Dad's company every damn day. That changed on January 15th when Jim Rodriguez called with news. "Enzo, the district attorney's office executed search warrants on your father's business and Vincent's home this morning. They seized computers, financial records, and bank statements. Vincent was arrested on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and filing false tax returns." After months of waiting, the hammer had finally dropped. "What about my dad?" "As far as we know, he is not being charged. The evidence suggests Vincent acted alone and concealed his activities from your father. But the business is definitely going to face civil penalties and client lawsuits." The local news picked up the story that evening. "Local business owner arrested for fraud" was the headline, with a mugshot of Vincent looking like he had aged 10 years overnight. The article laid out the basic facts: systematic invoice fraud, embezzlement of company funds, and tax evasion totaling over $275,000. The reporter mentioned that several clients were considering civil suits to recover overcharged fees. My phone started ringing with calls from industry people who had heard the news. Most were shocked, but a few longtime contractors said they had suspected something was off when Vincent took over. 2 days later, Dad called me. His voice sounded broken. "Enzo, son, I need to apologize. You were right. I should have listened to you and your mother. I should have recognized what you built for us. I did not know what to say." Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I just felt sad for him. Vincent's lawyer says he could face 5 years in federal prison. My business is ruined, and I do not know how I'm going to pay back the clients he defrauded. And how does that concern me, Father? I know. I just thought maybe you could. Oh, maybe you learn now what happens when you bet on the wrong horse. Son, I am so sorry. Apologize for yourself. I am good. That was the last conversation we had. The business ended up declaring bankruptcy within 3 months. Dad lost everything. The shop, the equipment, even his house had to be sold to cover legal fees and civil settlements. Vincent pleaded guilty to avoid trial and got sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, plus 5 years probation. His wife filed for divorce while he was awaiting sentencing, taking the kids and moving back to her parents' house. The judge ordered him to pay $275,000 in restitution, but since he spent most of what he stole, that money is never getting recovered. Today, Torino Landscape Solutions employs 55 people and generates over $2.8 million in annual revenue. We have expanded into commercial snow removal and have clients in 3 counties. I proposed to Sarah in March, and she said, "Yes, we are planning a wedding for next fall and talking about starting a family." I smile when I think about teaching my future kids about the value of building something with your own hands. Dad ended up taking a job with one of our competitors, just a crew leader position, but at least he is working. Stephanie divorced him the minute his money dried up, which surprised absolutely no one. The most satisfying part was not Vincent's downfall. It was seeing justice served and knowing that the clients he defrauded got some measure of accountability. Several of them ended up becoming clients of mine, telling me they respected how I handled the whole situation professionally. Big Mike always says it best. Your dad taught you the trade, but life taught you the business. Now you are teaching both to everyone else. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Dad had just treated me fairly from the beginning. But then I look around at the business I have built and the life I have created, and I realize their betrayal was actually the greatest gift they could have given me. Sometimes the best revenge is not getting even. It is just being better than them at everything they thought they could take away from me.